Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving deep into one of history's most pivotal moments, an event that didn't just start a war, but truly ignited a global conflagration, the invasion of Poland in 1939.
Okay.
Okay, let's unpack this. How did one specific military action lead to a global catastrophe that, well, irrevocably changed the 20th century?
It's a critical question, really. And our mission today is to understand not just what happened on September 1st, 1939, but why it became the undeniable catalyst. What's truly fascinating here is how multiple, seemingly disparate threads from long-standing territorial disputes and the failure of diplomatic efforts to cynical new alliances, they all converged at the single explosive point,
Right.
transforming what could have been maybe a regional conflict into a devastating world war. We're going to try and explore those connections for you.
That context is absolutely critical. So setting the scene, post-World War I Europe,
Yeah.
we have Poland, a nation that had gloriously regained its independence after, over a century of foreign rule?
That's right. A huge moment for them.
But this rebirth came with new borders, didn't it? Like the Polish corridor, which granted Poland vital access to the Baltic Sea, but, physically cut off East Prussia from the rest of Germany.
A major point of friction, yes.
And then there was the Free City of Danzig, a port city, mostly German population, but placed under League of Nations supervision.
How central were these specific territorial grievances to Germany's long-term goals, even before Hitler?
Oh, they were absolutely central. I mean, from the moment the Treaty of Versailles was signed, even during the Weimar Republic, Germany harbored deep revisionist goals. They saw these new borders, especially the corridor in Danzig as well, an injustice, a bleeding wound, they sometimes called it. Now, internationally, there were attempts to keep the peace, like the 1928 Brand-Kellogg Pact. That was a remarkable attempt, really, to declare aggressive war an international crime.
Something you might assume was always condemned, but it needed formalizing. Exactly, you might assume that. But this pact was a genuine effort to institutionalize peace, which makes its later breach even more impactful, you see. Its fragility became painfully clear as these German grievances just simmered.
So Germany had these long-standing goals. But how dramatically did things shift when Hitler took power in 1933? How quickly did his foreign policy move beyond just, revisionism to something much more aggressive?
This shift was seismic. Really profound. Hitler's foreign policy wasn't simply about reclaiming lost territories. It was driven by a much more expansive and frankly horrifying ideology. Lebensraum im Osten, living space in the East.
Right, Lebensraum.
This wasn't just about borders. It was a chilling vision of racial conquest, demographic restructuring in Eastern Europe, demanding vast territories for German settlement, envisioning the subjugation or, elimination of Slavic populations. It was a clear break from traditional thinking.
And it's remarkable then, given that aggression, that he initially signed a German-Polish non-aggression pact in 1934. Seemed conciliatory on the surface. What was the real strategy there for Hitler?
Oh, it was classic Hitler. A diplomatic feint, really. It bought him time, lulled Poland into a perhaps false sense of security while he rebuilt the German army, consolidated power.
Clever, in a sinister way.
Very. And that pact really highlights Poland's incredibly precarious position, geographically, politically just caught between two powerful revisionist neighbors, Germany and the Soviet Union.
A terrible spot to be in.
Absolutely. Poland was understandably wary of aligning fully with either. For instance, they resisted joining Germany's anti-Comintern pact. They feared becoming a German satellite state, isolating themselves from potential Western allies, even while they viewed the USSR as, enemy number one.
So a balancing act.
A desperate, dangerous balancing act, a policy of non-alignment that was ultimately doomed in that era of aggressive expansionism.
And as we trace Hitler's actions through 38 and 39 breaking the Munich Agreement, occupying Bohemia and Moravia, the Slovakian satellite state, annexing Memeland, it's genuinely terrifying, this pattern of broken promises. What did this show about his ultimate intentions for Poland, and why couldn't the international community stop it?
It showed he had absolutely no intention of stopping, and that each diplomatic concession, each gain, only whetted his appetite. If we connect this to the bigger picture, right, this period just demonstrates how the hope for peace through concession, what we call appeasement.
Appeasement, yeah.
It ultimately paved the way for a much larger conflict. Every German territorial gain met without significant international pushback. It just emboldened Hitler.
Made him think he'd get away with more.
Precisely. And the chilling insight here is that appeasement wasn't just a failure of nerve or, diplomacy. It was a fundamental misreading of Hitler's actual ideological blueprint. They mistook radical expansionism for traditional territorial demands, and that misjudgment, well, it ultimately sealed Poland's fate.
So as 1938 turns into 39, Hitler's aggression is unchecked. The diplomatic heat around Poland is reaching a boiling point. Germany starts making explicit demands, Danzig back, and these extraterritorial transit routes through the Polish corridor, road and rail. From Hitler's side, were these real negotiation points? Or something else entirely?
From Hitler's perspective, these were largely a diplomatic feint. He wasn't genuinely looking for a peaceful resolution. His objective was fixed, the violent gaining of living space in the East.
So the demands were just cover.
Exactly. These diplomatic moves were just a smokescreen, designed to buy time for war preps and, crucially, to build this narrative of Polish intransigence he could later exploit. He was setting the stage for war, absolutely not for peace.
In Poland, of course, they weren't naive. They refused Germany's proposals, right?
Yeah.
Fearing it would compromise their sovereignty, turn them into a German satellite.
Mm-hmm.
How did Poland's own response, their partial mobilization in March 39, how did that play into the escalating tension?
Well, their mobilization was a clear signal. They showed resolve, recognized the imminent danger, and this is also where British policy took that critical, maybe long overdue turn.
Chamberlain's shift.
Yes, Prime Minister Chamberlain. Long the champion of appeasement, he finally abandoned it after Hitler just blatantly broke the Munich Agreement by occupying Czechoslovakia. So March 31st, Britain issues a military guarantee to Poland.
A promise to support them.
A promise of support if its independence was threatened. This was followed by a renewed Polish-French alliance. It was meant as a clear signal: attack Poland and you won't be met with silence this time. The West was drawing a line in the sand.
So with the West seemingly drawing this firm line, maybe you'd hope for a breakthrough. But then, just days before the invasion, this geopolitical earthquake hits, the Hitler-Stalin Pact, August 24th, 1939. How much did this pact just blindside the Allied powers? What did it signal to Hitler?
Oh, the world was absolutely stunned. Blindsided is the right word. This pact fundamentally altered the whole geopolitical chessboard, not least because of its secret additional protocol.
It's the secret part, yeah.
Which cynically divided Poland and the Baltics into German and Soviet spheres of influence. For Hitler, it was a massive strategic win. It secured Germany's eastern flank, right? Eliminated the immediate threat of a two-front war, something that had haunted German military planners since WWR.
Huge for him.
Huge. But for Poland, despite those Western guarantees, it meant complete isolation. Utterly alone. It was just a stark, cynical display of power politics. Showed how quickly nations could redraw alliances, betray principles when it served their immediate interests. Poland was left completely exposed.
So eastern flank secured, Hitler's ready. He initially orders the attack for August 26th, but then there's a brief halt. We know Mussolini said Italy wasn't ready, but also the British-Polish Pact was formalized, right? What was Hitler's next move after that pause?
Even then, he didn't ditch his war plans. Not at all. Instead, he got, even more cunning. Tried to drive a wedge between Britain and Poland. He issued these impossible deadlines for a Polish envoy to arrive in Berlin with full negotiating power.
Setting them up to fail.
Exactly, creating a pretext of Polish unwillingness to negotiate. And then, on August 31st, the final justification, completely fabricated these staged border provocations, the most famous being the Gleiwitz incident. SS men in Polish uniforms attacking a German radio station.
Unbelievable.
And this raises an important question, doesn't it? How quickly can a fabricated incident become the official story, especially when propaganda machines are running full tilt and maybe the world is desperate for a reason not to go to war? What's truly chilling isn't just that it happened, but how effectively it was used. It shows the immense power of a manufactured truth, especially in that age of emerging mass media.
And so, the dawn of September 1st, 1939 arrives. 4:45 a.m. Just before sunrise, the German battleship Schleswig-Holstein, supposedly on a courtesy visit to Danzig, opens fire on the Polish garrison at Westerplatte.
The first shots, technically.
Simultaneously, German forces storm the Polish post office in the city. But the horror didn't stop there. The city of Wilu, completely undefended town, brutally bombed by Stuka dive bombers, undeclared, leveled 70% of the city, killed maybe 1,200 people.
A true terror bombing.
Later that morning, Hitler addresses the Reichstag, claims Polish provocations, and famously says, "Since 5:45 a.m., we are now returning fire."
And this invasion, unlike, say, the occupation of Czechoslovakia, this was the definitive spark. Precisely because of those explicit guarantees Britain and France had given.
The line in the sand.
Exactly. They had finally drawn that clear line. This invasion had to trigger a response. Otherwise, their credibility, really the whole post-WWI international order, would just crumble. The rules, flimsy as they were, had been irrevocably shattered.
The reactions from Paris and London were swift, maybe not instantaneous, but swift. On September 1st, both France and Britain issued notes demanding Germany's immediate withdrawal from Poland, basically an ultimatum. What caused that brief, very tense delay before the actual declarations of war?
Well, there was that brief, excruciating delay. Britain wanted to coordinate closely with France, and France needed a bit more time for its own mobilization, civilian evacuations. Plus, you had Mussolini making this desperate last-ditch attempt to mediate a peace conference.
A final attempt at peace.
A futile one, as it turned out. But pressure was mounting incredibly fast. This led to what's called the London government crisis on September 2nd. Cabinet members, the public, pushing hard for a decisive stance. The world was absolutely holding its breath.
And then the moment came, September 3, 1939. The UK, 11:00 a.m. France, 5:00 p.m., both declared war on Germany. Hitler had refused to withdraw. So what does this all mean for the scale? It instantly transformed a regional invasion into a continent-wide, and very soon, a truly global war.
Yes, but despite these declarations, the initial military actions by the West were, well, quite limited. On the Western Front, it became known as the Phony War, or Sitzkrieg. Little direct engagement.
Why so little action initially?
It wasn't necessarily indecision, I think. It was partly a period of strategic reevaluation, mobilization on the Allied side, maybe combined with a lingering hope, however faint, that a wider conflict could still be averted, maybe through diplomacy or a German capitulation, a hope that proved tragically misplaced.
Right.
There was a naval blockade of Germany, yes. But these actions, while symbolically important, were nowhere near enough to provide any meaningful relief for Poland. Poland was facing the full modern might of the German war machine, essentially alone.
And Poland felt that full might immediately. The German campaign was swift, devastating, using modern mechanized forces, that strategy designed to encircle and destroy. The Polish military, despite its very courageous defense and often underestimated capabilities, they were at a severe disadvantage.
Definitely.
There's that persistent myth, isn't there? Polish lancers charging German tanks,
Yeah.
often linked to the Battle of Krigenty.
Yes, that myth persists. It's largely a distortion. Polish cavalry were used effectively for reconnaissance, rapid maneuvers, not suicide charges against tanks. The reality was a modern, mechanized German assault against a less equipped, albeit incredibly brave, Polish defense fighting desperately for their homeland. And the final shattering blow to any remaining Polish hopes that came on September 17th. As per the secret protocol of the Hitler-Stalin Pact, the Soviet Union invaded eastern Poland.
The second invasion.
A two-front invasion. It definitively crushed any chance for prolonged Polish resistance or a sustained defense. The Soviets justified it by cynically claiming the Polish state had ceased to exist, even though it was still a sovereign entity under international law.
An excuse.
Absolutely. It was an unambiguous act of aggression, a second dagger plunged into the heart of a nation already fighting for its life.
By late September 39, the brutal reality sets in. Poland is divided between Germany and the Soviet Union, the fourth partition of Poland, as it's grimly called. What were the immediate, horrific consequences of the German occupation?
The consequences were horrifying and immediate. Germany annexed Western Polish territories directly into the Reich. They created the general government for the rest of its occupied zones, basically. A vast territory designated for ruthless exploitation and degradation.
Not just conquest.
No, this wasn't just about conquering land. It was about destroying a nation's identity, its people. Systematic extermination measures against Poles and Jews began straight away. These Einsatzgruppen, mobile killing squads, carried out targeted mass murders, intellectuals, clergy, union leaders.
Horrifying.
And incredibly, Hitler issued the Gnadnerlass on October 4th, 1939. It effectively pardoned Wehrmacht soldiers who committed atrocities. A clear signal right from the top endorsing this brutality. It was a terrifying precursor to the Holocaust and the broader genocidal policies that were still to come.
Despite this unbelievable oppression, this systematic violence, the Polish people showed incredible resilience, didn't they?
Absolutely. A Polish exile government was formed, carrying on the fight from abroad, and an ongoing widespread resistance movement started taking shape within occupied Poland, fighting for their nation's freedom from both within and without. Truly remarkable courage.
So, looking at the bigger picture, the invasion of Poland wasn't just a military action, right?
Yeah. No, far more than that. It was a profound breach of international law. This was recognized definitively later at the Nuremberg Trials. It was legally deemed a crime against peace. The German Reich had flagrantly violated multiple international agreements, the Hague Conventions, the Bryan-Kellogg Pact. Its actions were legally indefensible and morally reprehensible.
So, as we've explored today, the invasion of Poland in September 1939, it was undeniably the ignition point for World War II. Fueled by Hitler's expansionist, genocidal ideology, made possible by profound diplomatic failures, that cynical pact with Stalin, it irrevocably changed the course of the 20th century.
Indeed. The invasion of Poland wasn't merely a territorial dispute. You have to see it as a brutal, unambiguous declaration that established international norms, treaties, the very idea of national sovereignty. All could be shattered at will, simply by force.
A fundamental challenge.
A fundamental challenge to global order. That, combined with the immediate, if initially limited, response from France and Britain, that's precisely why this deep dive into Poland's fate is considered the true beginning of that prolonged global conflict. As you reflect on this, consider the weight of those decisions made back in August and September 1939, how they laid bare the immense fragility of peace when unchecked ideological ambition takes hold. Lessons that, well, still resonate today, don't they?